Hello again, fellow Mystery Files. In this bonus video, I am taking a look at the many covers of The Murder on the Links. About 90% of them involve golf, which is a sport notoriously absent from this novel, despite its name. There is no golfing in this book, yet it appears very frequently on the covers. It shares this in common with Why Didn't They Ask Evans, but at least there's like a little bit of golf in that book. Here the body is found on a golf course that's not even opened yet, but we'll check out all the covers, and there will be spoilers for The Murder on the Links ahead. And before I begin, make sure you like and subscribe to keep up to date with the channel. Starting out with the first edition, we have this one. This is the U.S. first edition from Dodd Mead. This book debuted in the U.S. before the U.K., so the U.S. is technically the first edition. And, I'm not a fan of this one. I'm not even sure what that implement is on the cover. It appears to be a golf club at first glance, but then you notice there's no actual, club part at the bottom. It looks like more like a dagger, although, Paul Renault was stabbed, but, this doesn't really look like a dagger either. We also have the bright sun in the background that looks like a Japanese rising sun on its flag. It's all a little weird and also a little plain and a little confusing. Not a fan of this one. And we have the original UK edition from the Bodley Head, and this one is in the style as the original Mysterious Affair Styles and The Secret Adversary, with this oil painting sort of look to it. It's a very nice image, but this is super spoilery. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure what scene from the novel is being depicted here. I think it's Marta Dubray stabbing Paul Renault on the golf course, which, why on earth would you depict that on the cover? And to be fair, I suppose someone who hasn't read the book could think that's any female character, but still, why would you want to do that when there are also male suspects as well? I suppose the figure is vague enough that maybe it could be a man. And then my other thought is that this figure is Paul Renault because it looks like he's carrying a shovel. So this would be when Renault is digging the grave for the tramp, which again, why would you depict such a spoilery scene on the cover? They do look like they're standing in a ditch, but I also have to be nitpicky and point out both of those events happen at night, and this cover is clearly in the daytime. I like the look of this one, but again, there are issues. And I will admit, from these next three covers, I'm a little confused over which editions they come from. I think I have it sorted out, but we have this one. I believe this is the William Morrow, 2020 edition. I think the confusion comes from this cover specifically because this cover was used by HarperCollins in 2010, but then it also became the 2020 edition. But that edition came with advertisements for the Kenneth Branagh Death on the Nile. But it's the same image, but it's technically two versions. But anyway, we have our usual golf motif. This time, a bunch of people are on a course, and we have a bloody golf ball. All of this nowhere to be found in the book. It's a nice image, though. The people are dressed appropriately for the time, and the golfer is a woman, which I think is a bit of a hint here to the murderer. So a little spoilery, but not too bad. And we have this vintage UK US edition, and this one is less active but is accurate to the novel. It is nighttime, which is nice to see, and the golf course is not fully constructed yet. There are no flags or holes or bunkers. I do wish that maybe there was more going on, but I love the style. I love the coloring. It's very ominous, very mysterious. And we have this edition, which I believe is the most recent cover from William Morrow. However, the Christie website for this page still uses the bloody golf ball one as the most recent cover. I think that's a mistake. I could be wrong, but I do believe this is the most recent cover. It's in the same style and font as the other more recent covers. And I like this one as well. And we have the incomplete golf course and the shovel in the bunker. The shovel is a much more accurate item to have on the cover than a golf club. And we have a little tiny Poirot walking toward the scene. It is daytime, but that is accurate because Poirot does not visit at night. The body is found in the daytime, and I really enjoy these covers, and this one is no exception. We still don't have any Tom Adams Fontana editions. I know a lot of people love those, and some of you have been asking for them. They are coming, I promise. We don't even have a Bantam edition that they stole a cover from another novel, but we do have this one from Waterstones, and I always loved these. I do wish the colored part here was maybe a bit larger. The golf tee does not give us like a lot of room to enjoy the scene that's going on there, but I don't mind the golf tee here, I suppose. I mean, I know I'm going to be like really nitpicky over how much golf is on these covers when it's not really accurate to the novel, but I mean, like, what else are they going to do? I don't know what other shape one could use for this, but the tee is a little too small for me, and you don't really get a great look at the golf course green, which is a really nice coloring. I wish we could see more of it. And we have this Barclay edition from the 1990s. This is the version I read from. It's one of those item collection covers. We have the golf course with the flag, because of course we do. We have the dagger, which is good. The designer of this cover actually read the book and didn't put a golf club on it. And we have a boot, which is a nice touch. The boot, I believe, is a reference to like the footprints in the garden beds, and that's a clue. I'll say no more. And because I associate color of these novels covers with these novels, you're probably thinking, "Oh, I associate navy blue with the Murder on the Links." And let me tell you, you would be wrong, because I never think of this novel. I don't think of this novel enough to associate it with the color. I rarely pick up this book, and so I never really see the cover. And we have this other Barclay edition. I do own some of these covers, but not this particular one. And I think this one's really ugly. It actually doesn't depict a golf course, but instead the tied up hands of Madame Renault, which is a bit traumatic, to be honest. It's not exactly the most pleasant image in the world. And this is probably like the second most common motif for covers of this book. And the color is also very ugly. You can barely make out the image. I think this cover is pretty hideous, and I don't like it. We have this 1994 HarperCollins edition, which depicts Madame Renault tied up once again. And this image is much better than the previous one. It's very spooky and scary, but I have to say, I think it's a little too dark. It doesn't match the tone of the novel. And yes, this does actually happen to Madame Renault. Well, sort of happens to her. But I do think this image gives sort of like a false impression of the tone of the novel. It's not really that dark or like as scary as the cover would let you believe. We have this rather strange pulpy cover from Dell Books. This had to appear in like Ellery Queen magazine at some point. But we have Poirot walking through a door to, I have no idea who that is supposed to be. Probably one of the Dulcie Bella twins. I have to imagine this is one of them in her performing outfit. I'm not the biggest like expert on Murder on the Links, but I don't remember this scene happening. Also, the little blurb that reads, "A sound made her look up. Hercule Poirot was standing in the doorway." Makes it sound like, oh, it sounds like a romance novel or something. But most people in the 1960s, where this book was published, or this edition was published, would understand this is a mystery novel because of like the pulpiness of it. This is a terrible cover, though. Also, note the incorrect title on the book. It's called The Murder on the Links. This edition leaves off the first the. This edition also came with a map of the area, which I really enjoyed, and I've also put on the screen here. But I think all books should come with a map like this one. The map is much better than the cover. We have another less pulpy Dell edition. It features a rather ominous cover. I like the design of the skull formed out of a noose. I know there's no noose in this novel, but it does evoke the gallows, although this book is set in France, so the execution method would be the guillotine. But I do like this image. They still use the golf motif. They make a little skull mouth from the golf tees, and the mansion is the nose. A golf ball is one eye, and the other eye is a ruby, I guess. I have no idea what that has to do with the novel, but I do think this is a very creative cover. Probably one that, again, sets the wrong tone, but not as bad as like the kidnapping images one. We have this great pan edition, Poirot examining the knife that's not bloody. And in the background, we have Hastings and Gerard examining the body. I really like this cover. I think this is the cover that most accurately depicts the scene from the novel. There's not a heavy golf influence. It's very accurate. I like this old-timey style as well. I like the way Poirot looks. He looks like David Suchet. This is a pre-Suchet cover. And I laughed at the caption that reads, "Poirot in the case of the murdered millionaire," as if like 75% of Golden Age mysteries don't have a murdered millionaire. We also have this very accurate cover from Corgi 1957. Poirot is much more elderly here. I've never really been sure like how old Poirot is supposed to be. He almost looks like a butler here, very Jeeves inspired, I would say. But I love the smirk on Poirot's face as he holds up the dagger to who we could presume is Giraud. Very snarky. I love this image a lot. I mean, to me, the best part of this novel is the Poirot Giraud rivalry. So I was very happy to see that depicted on this edition. We have this 2020 Warbler edition, and I kind of like the style, but I thought this image of two legs flailing around to be just like hilarious. Like, I have no idea what's going on here, and this image is a bit comedic to me, again, setting the wrong tone. I'm not even sure who this is supposed to be. I assume it's probably Renault, but his legs aren't even on the ground, and we have the usual golf motif in the background. It's kind of funny. I kind of like it, even though it's like, what does this have to do with the book? We have this Amazon Kindle edition. This is a good reminder that the Murder on the Links is in the public domain because the first thing I noticed about this cover was that is not Christie's signature. This is not an estate approved edition cover. I strongly suspect this might actually be AI generated. I like the style though. It's very colorful and it evokes mystery, but the image is all wrong. The bloody golf club is not accurate to the novel. No one is hit with a golf club. There's a huge pool of blood that's a bit unsettling. This is like too much blood on a book cover. Like, I don't want them to be cozy covers because these are not cozy novels, but they shouldn't be overly bloody either. There's an entire pool of blood here for some reason, and apparently the murderer is Thing from the Addams family because there's a disembodied hand holding the club. There's also no dead body, which is very strange for all that blood, and the Poirot depicted is just too skinny for my liking. Nice and like a nice plump Poirot. He looks honestly like a bit like Poirot in Sherlock Holmes's body. Let's move on to some foreign language editions. We have a few Italian ones to discuss. This is a Mondadori edition with what appears to be a young Sophia Loren on the cover. I have no idea who this is supposed to be. I guess one of the Duveen twins or Marta Dubray. There's also a ship in the background that I don't understand. I know Jack Renault was supposed to be on a ship, but that's such like an odd thing to depict on this book, especially when there are other like Christie ship novels more suited for such a cover. I actually wouldn't be surprised if we found out this is like a reused cover from Death on the Nile or like especially The Man in the Brown Suit. Like, I don't care for this one at all. It doesn't make much sense. Another Mondadori Italian cover. This one very pulpy. Another ship, which doesn't make much sense to me. We have creepy Poirot face in the water and the Dulcibella twins dancing. I do appreciate the no golfing on this one, but it's also a very weird pulpy cover. And it does make sense why the foreign editions would not feature golf since the titles no longer reference golf or reference the links in many, at least in Italian. In Italian, the title translates to "Help, Poirot." The pulpy covers always are, especially in the foreign language ones. They really do play up like the sex angle, and then they make it a little tawdry, I guess, to get more readers in. We have this 1934 Italian edition, and I have no idea what is going on here. I have no idea why the dead body is a woman, no idea who that is supposed to be. I have no idea why it appears Poirot was driving a car before I found this woman. A lot going on here, but not a lot that makes sense. We have this Oscar Mondadori edition with Jarrell wagging his finger in Poirot's face. This is an interesting choice to have that and not Poirot wagging his finger in Jarrett's face. Also, I think it's funny there's an Eiffel Tower in the background since this book takes place in the south of France and not in Paris. But again, I do like the Poirot Jarrell rivalry on the cover. We have this French edition. I wonder if the French version Jarrell is like less of an idiot. There's a lot going on in this image. I understand the dagger. I understand the trunk with different labels on it. I see what appears to be, like pieces of notes. I'm not sure what the diamond is referenced to. Maybe it's just me and I'm forgetting something about this book because this is the second cover to have a jewel on it that I just did not remember what it was about. And there's also an outline of a handprint. Not sure what that's doing. Again, I think that's probably more like a generic mystery sort of image. But overall, not sure I get Murder on the Links from this image. I'm not sure what book I would get from this cover. We have this Spanish edition, which features Poirot examining the body of Paul Renault. You're all going to roll your eyes at me, but I actually think this one could have used more golf. That field does not look like a golf course. It doesn't look like an incompleted golf course either. Like, I think you got to either like go all in on the golf course or not, and I'm not sure what this is. This looks like a random field. I would not have guessed this was Murder on the Links had the title not been on the page. We have this Odysseus Asa Portuguese edition, and I love this style of image, very bright and colorful. We have Poirot on a golf course. We don't actually have a body or blood or a weapon, but I do like how the golf hole almost looks like a coffin. It's certainly the right shape. It adds a bit of a mystery to this otherwise cheerful cover. We have this Globo Livros Portuguese edition, a bloody dagger sticking out of a golf hole, a shadowy unknown figure golfs in the background. I like this cover, outside of the completed golf course. I think it's a pretty accurate image. It's sufficiently mysterious, and I think it's a pretty good cover. We have this Greek edition, a skull formed in a golf ball, and this one's pretty creepy. A lot of mystery novels like to depict skulls on the cover as a way of being sinister without being gory. To me, it evokes more horror than mystery, but it also signifies death, so I guess it works. I actually like this cover a lot. We have this Czech edition. Someone is golfing over the dead body, which is a little odd. But I like how dark and mysterious this cover is. I have no idea whether there's a gun on the cover. It could be that the kidnappers or the fake kidnappers were said to use guns. I can't remember. Or why there's a giant G on the cover, unless it's supposed to be a C for Christie. But, that's neither here nor there. Otherwise, I do think it's a pretty good cover. We have this Exmo Russian edition. It does look a little AI generated, honestly, but it's another dagger in a golf hole. I wish the image was larger. To be honest, I don't know what all the text says because I can't read Cyrillic. I believe that's what language this is, or the alphabet is. I wish this cover was a bit more mysterious and more murdery. This is a Vietnamese edition. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the publisher, but this was recommended by a viewer. A bloody knife and a golf ball and a tee. I like all the red. The red makes it look so ominous. I mean, to be fair, it could be red for Vietnam. It is the national color. But I think the red field looks so bloody. I kind of like it, even though it does give perhaps maybe a little bit too much of a horror vibe to it. And finally, I once again asked ChatGPT to create a cover for the Murder on the Links, and this was the result. I really like this image and style. I mean, ChatGPT has done a surprisingly good job creating the images, although I do think this one has some issues, but I don't think this is an unusable cover. First of all, it does leave off the at the top of the page, the beginning of the title. This was actually my mistake since I simply typed murder on the links, but the robot did not know otherwise. This cover really looks like Hastings murdered Paul Renault, which I find really funny, though it's also odd to depict Hastings and not Poirot here. Actually, this Hastings, assuming that's who this is, looks an awful lot like the AI generated Tommy Beresford from the Secret Adversary cover. We have no murder weapon, not golf balls. Oddly, it appears there are two golf clubs upside down. I don't know what they're doing just standing up like that, but it's a bit of a mistake. But I also think the links themselves are accurate to the story. You can tell those are golf links, but they don't look totally complete and ready to go. And that is it for this bonus video. Let me know if I missed any covers or any additions that you want to be here about, and I'll keep that in mind when I do my future looks into the artwork of Christie book covers. The next one in line here is not actually a novel. It is the Poirot Investigates short story collection. So that will be the next book I will cover in this series about the cover artwork. I suppose that will probably be the next bonus video as well. I'm always working on multiple bonus videos here that I never actually complete, but I will get to eventually. So stay tuned for that. Until next time, Mystery Files.